Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So yes, last night we got the 94th Academy Awards ceremony, which means it is time for me to discuss my thoughts on the ceremony, as well as my thoughts, feelings, reactions to the winners and losers of the night. Now, there was a lot that happened during this ceremony that is much talked about at the moment, but I did just want to mention right up top that I'm not going to be discussing the incident that happened between Chris Rock and Will Smith in this video. Many of you guys would already seen that I made a separate video talking about that incident, so if you want to hear my thoughts about that, you can go ahead and check out that video. But the reason why I decided to split it from this main video talking about the ceremony at large is because I feel like the ceremony unfortunately has already been overshadowed by what happened, by this incident, and I didn't want that to be the case for my video as well, because I do enjoy talking about all of the categories and my thoughts about the ceremonies themselves each and every year. So I do think it would be a shame if I spent the majority of this video talking about an unfortunate incident that is quite complicated. So you can check out that video if you want to hear more about my thoughts on that, and if also you want to share your thoughts on what happened down in the comments, I would very much be interested to hear them. But in this video we are going to be going through my reaction of the 94th Academy Awards ceremony, as well as its winners and losers. Now, even before the Academy Awards ceremony was aired, it was already rocked with a bunch of controversy because of the decisions that the Academy had made surrounding the changes that would be in the ceremony. For example, the decision to basically remove the technical awards from the main broadcast and instead show them as like a highlight reel during certain segments in the show, in the main show, which was really controversial, as well as of course the fan favorite segments that they had this year that felt very MTV People's Choice Award situation. And I actually have an upcoming video discussing the diminishing viewership and popularity of the Oscars, where I talk about and basically analyze why I think it is that viewership has decreased and the problems that the Oscars are facing at the moment. So be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you're told when that's posted. It'll be later this week, and in that video I'm going to be discussing the issues in a more general sense, but for this video in particular I'm just going to take a look at how these changes affected the actual ceremony and broadcast itself. So first of all, I really disagreed with the decision to reduce the screen time that the winners of the more technical awards would get. I think it was really disrespectful. I definitely think it showed where the Academy's priorities lied, and it definitely isn't with the professionals in the industry. It's with viewership. It's with trying to gain more audiences and ensuring that audiences stay tuned for the live show. And I think it's a shame. It's kind of like a slap in the face to people who work really, really hard in this industry and make it run. Like literally, without them, there is nothing. Like without them, there is no show because you don't have movies to celebrate. So the idea that they would just be reduced to having these tiny 2-second clips is kind of insulting. And they do have a joke about that at the beginning of the ceremony where the lights start flickering. And whilst that joke was cute, it's yet another example of the Academy Awards kind of making jokes about hot topics and then just doing nothing to actually make the changes to satisfy those who disagree with the issue. Like, it's like, what's the point of making a joke about something that you put on yourself? You literally did this, Hollywood. Okay, so yeah, it was just a bit awkward and bad-spirited. And by the way, this was a rare occasion where I actually checked out the Academy Awards live. Like, I was actually watching it on Sky Cinema through Now TV, and yes, I was up at 4 a.m. watching this thing, and boy was it worth me watching it live, because there were definitely some surprises. But that's why I'm able to give you guys a bit more of an in-depth reaction to the ceremony itself, because I actually did watch it from start to finish. And the second thing, as I mentioned, was these more like fan favorite categories that they had. What is the meaning of these categories? What is the purpose of these categories? I don't understand, because the films don't get Oscars. The films don't get anything. It's just like, oh, we had a poll on Twitter and this is the result of that poll. Like, it was so bizarre. So the first one was like most cheer-worthy moments. I have the list here, and number 5 was the Matrix bullet scene. Number 4 was And I'm Going to Tell You from Dreamgirls. Number 3 was Avengers Assemble from Endgame. Number 2 was the No Way Home, all 3 Spider-Mans. And number 1 was Zack Snyder's Justice League, the Flash moment. What? We all see what's going on here, right? Like, the Snyder fans came through. The Snyder fans came through. They were voting several times a day, several times an hour, okay, to make sure that this happened. No one knows or cares about the Flash moment from Zack Snyder's Justice League. No, like literally, I watched Zack Snyder's Justice League, all 4 hours of it, and to this day I don't even know what the resolution of that story was. I don't actually know what the Flash did in that moment. I can explain to you the plot point of that iconic moment that they named number 1 most cheer-worthy moment in cinema. That makes absolutely no sense. This entire popularity contest was such a farce because it wasn't even a popularity contest. It was a test of how devoted certain fan groups are to ensure that they vote several times a minute and make sure that their chosen property or their chosen project actually went through and won this, not even an award, like this, won this, whatever it is. And that's the problem with this. It means absolutely nothing. It's more insulting than the MTV Awards because at least the MTV Awards give you actual awards. This gives you nothing. It gives you like 2 seconds on screen during the live broadcast, which could have been taken up by someone who's been working in the industry for 20 years and finally has their moment in the spotlight, but whatever. And then the second one was Best Fan Movies, and here the nominees were Tick Tick Boom, Spider-Man No Way Home, Minamata, Cinderella, and Army of the Dead was number 1. Again, the Zack Snyder fans came through. Like, what can I tell you? Can you honestly look me in the eye and say that Army of the Dead was the most popular movie of the entire year last year? Can you? And also that speaks to another problem with this category in that we already know how to classify the most popular movie of the entire year, and it's with the box office. We know what the most popular movie of the entire year was because it made the most money. It was Spider-Man No Way Home. Now you could say, okay, with streaming movies you don't have box office, so it's tough to tell, but like this isn't a good test of what was the most popular movie of the year regardless, because it's literally just a test to see who's devoted enough to sit there on the Academy Awards website and just keep clicking vote for whatever Zack Snyder produced last year. Like, that's literally what happened. And the fact that Cinderella is a runner-up, that made me so angry. If you've been on my channel for 2 seconds, you'll know my feelings towards Cinderella from 2021. I was fuming. What an embarrassment. And the scene that they chose just pretty much epitomized why this was a farce and why this was such an embarrassment, because the scene was so stupid, was so dead. It was almost as if they intentionally chose that scene just to show the audience, this is what you've done. This is what you picked, you fools, you idiots. So yeah, the introduction of these new populist categories was stupid as hell. It didn't really test anything. It didn't really show what was the most popular movie or what was the most iconic moment in cinema. Please, you're going to do that with a poll on your website? Like, that's so embarrassing. It was mostly a test to see who could troll the Academy most effectively. And people knew that, like, it didn't make any sense. Like, of course, there would be so many more classic movies included in the most iconic moment of all time list, but unfortunately, because of recency bias, you have, you know, other moments that people are just thinking of now, and that's why it creates such an imbalance. So it was just a pointless exercise, and I don't even think it worked to get the viewership that the Academy was looking for, because either way, it was such a quick segment that people would just turn to social media to see the results anyways. And another thing that this ceremony introduced, which I think was actually quite interesting, interesting was the idea of celebrating the anniversaries of some of the most iconic movies in cinematic history. So we had the 30th anniversary of White Men Can't Jump, which I think was fun. We also had the, I think it's like 10th or 15th anniversary of Juno, as well as, of course, the celebration of the 60 years of James Bond, and the 50th anniversary of The Godfather. We also had the 28th anniversary of Pulp Fiction. That was a cute bit. Like, in terms of the actual presenters, like the stars of the films coming up and presenting the awards, I think the cast of Pulp Fiction was the best because they had a cute bit. They had great chemistry even after all these years, and they actually made the bit like funny. Like, they actually had great comedic timing with the suitcase and everything, whereas some of the other stars, they seemed a bit confused, especially like the cast of like White Men Can't Jump. They seemed a bit confused or like discombobulated, so that didn't quite work. And then of course the cast of like The Godfather, I mean, we're not expecting them to run around and jump and entertain us in any way. Like, they're veterans, right? Like, they're just iconic in their own way. The fact that they were standing together as a trio on stage was already an honor. So whilst the Pulp Fiction gang definitely won that competition, I did think it was a bit strange that we were celebrating the 28th anniversary of Pulp Fiction. Like, the others are like 30 years, 60 years, 50 years, and then it's just 28 years. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Clearly they just wanted to invite the trio and, you know, ask them to present an award, and that's perfectly okay. They found a reason to do so. Okay, so now let's go through the actual categories themselves and talk about the winners of the evening. So first one up we have is Best Actress, and here we have Jessica Chastain taking the award home. I was delighted. I genuinely, guys, I was so happy. Like, if you've watched my reaction video of the nominations list, then you know she was actually my front runner out of this whole, you know, group, and I'm really happy to see that she ended up taking it home, because, you know, this award season there was like several front runners, you know, throughout. First of all, right out of the gate, it seemed like Kristen Stewart could perhaps take it home for Spencer, which I wholeheartedly disagreed with. Then it shifted over to like Nicole Kidman perhaps, but ultimately it ended up in Jessica Chastain's hands, and I couldn't be happier. I think she looked absolutely stunning, and I thought that her speech was really poignant and really passionate, and obviously really timely for what's going on in the world, and in particular with some discriminatory legislation in America. So next one up we have Best Actor, which, yes, very memorably did of course go to Will Smith. Like I said, I'm not going to be talking about what happened with the whole Will Smith Chris Rock situation, but, you know, in terms of his performance in King Richard, I have been campaigning, not putting any money into this campaign, but campaigning for this for a while now, ever since I saw King Richard, and I was just captivated by his performance in that film. I really was. So I was gunning for him to win, and I am glad ultimately that he did win. You know, obviously last night he didn't have his finest moments, and I wish that it hadn't happened, so that he would have been able to give a speech that was worthy of this great honor, and also of, you know, his tenure in Hollywood, reflecting a peak in his long career in Hollywood. But it is what it is. I still think that he deserved to win for his performance in King Richard. It just does put a stain on things considering how the night ended up. And also I have to mention, I'm really happy that the Academy didn't turn around and do something stupid and idiotic and give Benedict Cumberbatch the award, because it seemed as though The Power of the Dog was going to be taking home a ton of awards for a while there, but it ended up coming short of a lot of that. You know, we'll talk about it in a second, but The Power of the Dog really wasn't that girl like people thought it would be, which I'm pleased about, because I thought that whilst the film was very good, it wasn't exceptional, you know, nothing to write home about, and it definitely wasn't one of my favorite films of last year. Okay, so next one up we have Best Supporting Actress, and this was actually the first award of the night, and it went to Ariana DeBose. absolutely deserving, just absolutely deserving of this award. I mean, this was a point of the night where we thought everything was going to be same old, running smoothly as per usual, but of course the night started shaking up later down the line. But I would say that I was really pleased to see Ariana get this win. She was pretty much the front runner in this category, so it would have been a big shock if she didn't win here. But yeah, I am really glad that she ended up taking this award home, because she was absolutely phenomenal in West Side Story. Truly a highlight. And I think the fact that Rita Moreno was there looking on to see this, you know, new ingenue taking the Academy Award for the same role that she herself had won an award back in 1961, I believe it was. I think that was really touching. And the fact that Ariana actually mentioned that, you know, this is her idol, just sitting there a few meters away from her, who won that Academy Award, and now she's winning it. Like, that whole moment was just really beautiful and truly symbolic. And of course, the fact that she mentioned that she is an Afro-Latina, and the fact that she is a queer person, you know, all of this just came into how special that moment was for her, and also what it means for cinema history. And I think it was really touching. This whole evening really did celebrate voices that aren't usually elevated in Hollywood, and indeed in the world. If you think about it, there were a lot of marginalized communities that really got a chance to shine last night. And like I said, I think it is a huge shame that their voices are now being overshadowed by the incident that occurred with Will Smith. And speaking of giving marginalized group the spotlight, next up we have Best Supporting Actor, and this went to Troy Kotsur. I am delighted. I am delighted. Okay, by the way, I was 4 for 4 with the acting categories this year. I don't know if it's because I'm more experienced now, having done these videos for a few years now, but I actually got exactly what I wanted this time around. Usually I'm coming up here saying, the Academy messed up, they didn't listen to me, but they actually did listen to me this time around. I'm so happy that Troy Kotsur won. I'm so happy. And the speech that he gave in sign language was truly so touching. Okay, it was heartbreaking to hear about the people in his family that he had lost. Several people, you know, several winners that night were also talking about, you know, the people that were no longer with them and how much it would have meant to them to see that moment, which I think is really heartwarming. But yeah, I was just so happy for him. Oh my goodness, like my heart just felt so full, and I was so happy for the representation that the deaf community got last night, because like I said, this is yet another voice that we don't often hear in society. So then next one up on my list, I have Best Director, and this one went to Jane Campion for The Power of the Dog. And this is pretty much where my winning streak ends. Well, it doesn't end, but it takes a break, because, you know, I was never the biggest fan of The Power of the Dog. Like I said, I think it's a good film, but I don't think it's exceptional by any stretch of the imagination. I'd also heard what had happened with Jane Campion and what she had said about the Williams sisters. And for those of you who don't know, she basically made a comment in a previous awards ceremony where she won Best Director, and she basically said like, oh, what the Williams sisters achieved was great and all, but she actually had to go up against male directors, and somehow that made her better than them or something, even though factually that's like inaccurate, because they have had to go up against male tennis players. It's called doubles, duh, like mixed doubles. But also it was just bizarre, because like, why was she targeting them? Like, it was this weird kind of like white feminist energy where it was like, I know what these black women have achieved is like cool and all, but look at me, I'm this like directress, you know, and I'm going up against men all the time. She didn't have to compare herself to the Williams sisters. It was so weird. Like, we can celebrate both. We can celebrate all of the achievements of women. We don't need to pit these women against each other. Pitting herself against the Williams sisters, no less. It just left a sour taste in my mouth when it came to Jane Campion, who I already was kind of side-eyeing, because I think The Power of the Dog is a bit overrated. I mean, the Williams sisters aren't even in the same field as you, sis. That makes no sense. Anyways, and then in the night, she actually had her speech prepared, and she was like wrestling on this piece of paper that wouldn't open, which was kind of funny. But yeah, she was desperate to get that speech out. She already knew that it was likely she was going to win, because she'd won everything else. But like I said, I was pleasantly surprised to see that The Power of the Dog didn't end up taking home a ton, because like I said, I think it's a bit overrated. So then we get to the big one. Then we get to the big one, guys. I was delighted. I was ecstatic to see that the Best Picture winner ended up being not The Power of the Dog, thank goodness, not The Power of the Dog, but rather Apple TV Plus's Coda. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I am so happy because, you know, spoiler for my best movies of 2020 and 2021 video, but that movie may or may not make an appearance there on that list. So I was delighted to see that Coda ended up winning. Like I said, what an evening for representation and highlighting the voices of the deaf community and their stories and experiences. I loved that. I absolutely loved that. And that entire cast and crew just seems so genuinely excited and delighted for this tiny little film that, according to Sian Heder, the director of the film, we'll talk about her in a second, was really difficult to make. Like, it was really difficult to have this film be made. It is in fact a remake of a French film, by the way, which is something that hasn't been highlighted enough, I don't think, during this campaign. But it was really difficult to get this film made and you know, funded, and the fact that Apple TV Plus kind of made a space for it, you know, she was really grateful for that. And so to see it come from, you know, just this tiny little film that was almost impossible to get made to winning Best Picture is extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. But anyways, going back to Sian Heder, why was she not nominated for Best Director? Why? Like, Coda ended up winning several awards. Okay, it was up for Best Picture, but I guess the film just directed itself. I guess the film just knew what it was doing and directed itself. Literally everyone who, you know, got an award was thanking Sian as the director of the film. And they were, you know, talking about how she did so much to make this happen. And she herself ended up winning Best Adapted Screenplay. So clearly sis was doing something. Like, clearly she wasn't just sitting on her ass whilst this film directed itself. Why wasn't she nominated for Best Director? We still could have gotten a female director winning the Academy Award again for 2 years in a row, but it would have been the better director. In my humble opinion, it would have been the better director, which was Sian Heder for Coda, which ended up winning Best Picture. And I believe this may be one of the first times, or even the few times, where the director of the film that ended up winning Best Picture wasn't nominated for Best Director. And I mean, looking at the nominees for Best Director this year, I would easily remove one of these directors and put Sian Heder in there instead. And the first one that comes to mind for sure is Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza. When I had done my nominations list reaction video, I hadn't gotten a chance to watch Licorice Pizza yet, but I have since watched that film. Whilst it's cute, whilst it's fun, cute, interesting, it's got a style, it's got an aesthetic to it, okay? Very 70s, it's fun. It did not deserve any Academy Award nominations, in my opinion. It really didn't. The only reason why it was on any of these lists is because it's directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, an iconic director, but otherwise it would have just gone right under the radar. And I think the fact that Paul Thomas Anderson was nominated here instead of Sian Heder makes absolutely no goddamn sense. Like, that is just classic Hollywood favoring, you know, the tenured, favoring people who are already highly favored in their industry. Okay, so the next category that I'm going to be discussing is Best Animated Feature, and the winner here was, of course, Encanto. Of course. We all knew that was going to happen. That's not a surprise. It's a spectacular film, one of the best that Disney has produced in a while, in my opinion. So I was really happy to see it win. Like, yeah. Makes sense. And also a nice touch that the ceremony had was that we did get the first ever live performance of We Don't Talk About Bruno. We Don't Talk About Bruno with Megan Thee Stallion. That blew my mind. Yep. That blew my mind, not gonna lie. Yeah, I mean, we could get into original song here as well, but yeah, I was really happy to see the live performance of We Don't Talk About Bruno. Seeing the voice cast of the film actually perform the song live was also really great, and like I said, with Megan Thee Stallion, superb. But unfortunately, especially for Disney and Lin-Manuel Miranda, who had an EGOT at stake here, by the way, unfortunately they did not choose We Don't Talk About Bruno as their offering for Best Original Song, and instead chose Dos Oruguitas. Now, I completely understand that Dos Oruguitas is a beautiful song that ties into the themes that are explored in Encanto and really speak to the experiences, especially of Abuela and Abuelo, you know, as they were trying to make a new life for themselves and their family. It's a really beautiful, touching song, and I completely understand why Disney and Lin-Manuel Miranda would decide to put this one up for the Best Original Song category. But I do think that if they had really wanted that Oscar, especially since Lin-Manuel Miranda, like I said, you know, he had an EGOT at stake. He literally is only missing the O in EGOT. So if he really wanted that Oscar, he wouldn't have played it to chance, and he would have put We Don't Talk About Bruno in there instead, or at least as well as, because you can have more than one song nominated for a film, I believe. Just ask La La Land, although I don't know if the rules have changed since then, but La La Land had like 3 songs nominated that year. So if he really didn't want to leave it to chance, he would have put We Don't Talk About Bruno. He would have done that now. He would have done that. But unfortunately, he didn't do that. And so the song ended up losing to No Time to Die. Now, I personally am a fan of No Time to Die. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm a fan of the song, by the way, I'm talking about. The song by Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas O'Connell. I think they knocked it out of the park. I really like No Time to Die. It's haunting. It's, you know, sexy, but also kind of morose. Like, I really enjoy it. I don't think Billie gave her best performance of the song in last night's ceremony. I actually think her performance like 2 years ago at the Brits was absolutely incredible. And unfortunately, because of the delays releasing No Time to Die the movie, the song kind of feels a bit stale at this point. And I actually thought it would be a disadvantage to the song and that it wouldn't end up winning mostly for that reason. But no, it lasted, you know, it endured, and I think it's great to see that it actually ended up winning. And in a way, Hans Zimmer ended up winning twice last night, because not only did he do the score for Dune, which he won for, but also he helped write the music for No Time to Die with Billie Eilish and Phineas. And also, side note, not to shun Beyonce completely, but I also really do like Be Alive from King Richard. It's definitely not the most, you know, sophisticated and memorable song of this list, and certainly not of the entire year, but I do genuinely love that song. I think it is really inspiring, and the beats to it are, you know, they really speak to the struggles and the triumph of the King Richard story. And I think Beyonce killed her performance at the beginning of the ceremony, even though it wasn't a live one, it was pre-recorded. But the fact that she was on this like quasi tennis court with this like bright neon yellow green, you know, tennis ball color, I think was really cool. Okay, so to finish things off, we are going to be talking about a few other bits and bobs here and there. A few other bits and bobs in the Academy Awards. First of all, Dune ended up taking home a bunch of technical awards, and you know, good for Dune. Definitely deserved those technical awards. Like, good for that film. Like I said, it didn't really have the same impact because a lot of those technical awards weren't part of the live broadcast, so they felt like a footnote in the entire ceremony. But Dune actually ended up taking home a ton of awards, and it was really weird again to see all of the winners who went up on stage thank Denis Villeneuve for, you know, the opportunity to be a part of this huge project. And in the meantime, he himself wasn't nominated for Best Director. Again, like, that makes no sense to me. I would have removed, you know, someone else. I personally would have removed Jane Campion, but whatever, people like Power of the Dog. I would have removed someone else in order to make way for Denis Villeneuve, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Dune, because it makes no sense to me that it would be nominated for Best Picture. It won a ton of these technical awards, but the director just like did nothing. Like he just sat on his hands, I guess, and just did nothing the whole time. People were actually going out of their way and speaking French to thank him. And I guess he's just has no part in the success of this story. Whatever. We'll see how the reception goes for the second part. Perhaps that's when people will appreciate Denis Villeneuve's contributions to this franchise a bit more. We also saw Best Costume Design go to Jenny Bevan for Cruella, which made me very, very happy. Because I often say, you know, one of the critiques that I have for the Academy is that they choose like a handful of films that came out the entire year, and they will nominate the handful for like all of these categories. And I feel like sometimes in certain more technical categories, those films that they have deemed worthy of attention don't even fit into those technical categories. They're not the best of what the year had to offer, but they are nominated just because those are the ones that the voters watched. So I'm really happy to see that Cruella was nominated for Best Costume Design, because it absolutely deserved to be there. Even though it's not the typical Academy Award worthy movie, it's definitely more of a popcorn movie, but the costume design in that film was undoubtedly spectacular. And I love the fact that it was actually acknowledged and rewarded for that technical element. And a similar thing for the award for Best Hair and Makeup, which went to The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Again, completely deserving. The makeup in that film was absolutely spectacular. The way that they were able to transform Jessica Chastain and Andrew Garfield was really, really impressive. And of course, the way that Jessica Chastain was able to act through that makeup and convey all of those emotions through that makeup was truly inspiring as well. So I'm really happy that that duo from The Eyes of Tammy Faye won those awards. And finally, the last award that I wanted to mention for this video was for Best Documentary Feature, which went to Summer of Soul. I was ecstatic that this film ended up winning. I think this documentary is superb. It's available on Disney Plus for those of you who haven't watched it yet. And I did in fact discuss it in my American Black History Month video. So if you want to hear more of my thoughts on this documentary, I would highly recommend you check out that video. But I was so happy for Questlove for winning the award, because I truly think it is a spectacular documentary. To be fair, it is the only documentary out of the list that I have seen, but I was so happy that it ended up winning. And again, it's yet another example of this Academy Awards shining light on a marginalized community, an event that was almost entirely lost in history. But that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts and reaction for the 94th Academy Awards, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of all this mess down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch you videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.